I have upstairs. Here, maybe here. Here. Oh.
They're both used. It's fine.
Okay. Shalom aleichem, everybody, and welcome. So this morning in the Ma'amar Chassidus, we learned the difference between the avodah of an eved and the avodah of a ben. The avodah of an eved is all mitoich yira, and the avodah of a ben is mitoich ava. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says we need the combination of both. And that's why, in connection to this week's parsha, Ma Toiva Alecha Yaakov Mishkan Esecha Yisrael, that's why it says both, Yaakov and Yisrael. Whereas by Avram, once he was called Avraham, there's no more Avram. The avodah of Avram is gone. By Yaakov Yisrael, Yaakov is the avodah of Eved, Yisrael is the avodah of Ben, and you need them both. And Alecha is the avodah of Makif, and that's why by Yaakov it says Alecha because it's out of fear, and Mishkan Esecha Yisrael because that's internal. That was good. We condensed the whole hour Maimer into one thing. But today we're going to learn a little halacha. What does it mean to be a Eved? I don't know if you know, there's halacha in Hilchas Schiras Payalim. In Choshen Mishpat Siman Shin Lamed Gimel, Sif Beis, the Ramah says like this. Not Sif Gimel, sorry. Hagar, Umehai Taima, Asr Lepoyel, it is forbidden for a worker, Afilu Malamed, even if he's a teacher, or a sofer, Lahasker Atzmai Lies Bebayis Balabayis, Bikfa Shloish Shanim. There's a halacha that states that if you hire a worker to work for you, at any time he has the right to back out. Even if you signed a contract, even if you paid him up front for the job, if he decides the job is not for him, he could back out. Why? Because the Torah says, Avadaihem, the Yidden, every Yid is the Eibish's Eved. Darshan's Chazal, Avadaihem, you're only enslaved to me. A Yid is never enslaved to a bus of a dumb. So you think it's a spiritual thing. It's not only a spiritual thing, halachically. The halacha states that you never, if you signed a contract, you got paid to do something, a Yid is never chokeholded that he must do this. No, a Yid can never, halachically, if I decide for whatever reason, obviously there's questions. If he's going to cause a loss, maybe he has to pay for the loss. But to say that you're forced to finish the job, you're forced to do this because or whatever, there is no force by a Yid. The only forced thing that we have to do is avodah. So the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, goes on to say that it's not only in that halacha, the halacha is that's why you're never allowed to sign a long-term contract. You're never allowed to sign a long-term contract because if you sign some machlekes, if it's 3 years or 5 years, that means you're quote-unquote stuck there. A Yid should never put himself in a position to be stuck. Only stuck to the Eibishter. Okay? Now the Mefarsh and the Pesach Tshuva and the Achrayim bring a discussion. What would be the din if a person that's if a person has a job to paint or to work for somebody. You're saying, I'm sorry, you can't devote all your life painting when you're supposed to be the Eibishter service. But what if the guy is doing something for the Eibishter? Somebody's a Rav, a Shliach. So anyways, he's switching from one to one. So the Achrayim discuss that. But that's the one side of the Eved. You're never allowed to put yourself into position to be an Eved to a human being. You hear Noach? You're never Meshubit to another person. You're only Meshubit to a Yid, to the Eibishter. Okay. Then there is a Shaila Adin in Hilchas Kriya Shema. In Hilchas Kriya Shema, in Ohr HaChaim. In Ohr HaChaim, Siman Ayin. In Ohr HaChaim, where it's Hilchas Krishma, the Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch, talks about who's Mechuyev b'Krishma. Says the Mechaber, Nashim v'avadim p'turim miKrishma. Ladies are exempt from Krishma, slaves are exempt from Krishma, and he gives a reason. We know that ladies are only mechuyev and mitzvahs that are always, they're not time bound, because this has limitations when you're able to fulfill the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. This is by day, this is by night, certain times. So it's mitzvahs of sheisha, as man garama, they're exempt. However, Says the Mechaber, even though they're exempt, nochain hu lalamdam, it's proper to teach them to say Krishma, sheyikablu aleim al malchus shamayim, because so too they need to have the yoke of heaven on them. So it's proper for them to learn to say Krishma. But halachically, they're exempt. When was the last time you learned to Rabbi Akiva Eiger? Did you ever learn Rabbi Akiva Eiger? No. All right, so come to Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, oh, that's the reason ladies are exempt. That's the reason, I'm sorry, not ladies. That's the reason avodim are exempt, slaves. I'll tell you, there's another Gemara. There's a Yerushalmi. In the Yerushalmi, Yolifla, in the Yerushalmi, he says a different reason why avodim are exempt. Because what are you saying? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. God is one. I'm totally meshubah to Hashem. How can you say that? You're an Eved. How can you say Hashem? The Yerushalmi says, since it says Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, one who could say I'm totally devoted to Hashem could say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Some who has another balabas, he has another boss, he can't say, well, you're lying. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Parenthetically, you know that in the words, the pasuk Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, there's all 99% of the letters are the same size of everything else. There's two letters that are Oishis Ravravin, two letters in that pasuk that are big. The Ayin from Shema and the Dalet from the Echad. They make up the word aid, which means a witness. At that time, when you're saying Shema, you're saying testimony that you're identifying Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Well, excuse me, Hilchas Eidus, you asked Rabbi here, and Hilchas Eidus is a whole section who's disqualified to be aid. Who makes you eligible? If there's a whole section of Russia, and it's not too bad, not too easy, not too hard to become a Russia halachically. It's Apostle Eidus. So a lot of poskim say that before you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, you have to be Mahar B'tshuva, because if not, you're not a kosher witness to say this. Anyways, let's go back to our point. The Yerushalmi says that an Eved is pater from Kriya Shema because he can't say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. He's not Echad. He has another boss. Yotza zeh sheyesh lo odin acher. Okay. Comes Rabbi Akiva Eiger and says, Lefi zeh chatzi Eved v'chatzi ben chayim. What's a chatzi Eved, chatzi ben chayim? Chatzi Eved, chatzi ben chayim is it's only 7 minutes. Chatzi Eved, chatzi ben chayim is somebody who is hired, who is taken as a slave by partners. One partner freed him, and the other one still holds him as a slave. So what happens? You're going to miss the punchline. So what happens? So the person who freed him made the Eved half free. He's half empty, half free, and half still enslaved. What would be the din? Could he say, is he mechuyev in Shema? Mitzad mitzvah saseh shaz mangarama, and mitzad the reason of the Yerushalmi that Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, he can't say Hashem Echad because he still has. So he says, according to this reason, even a chatzi Eved v'chatzi ben chayrin is pater from the mitzvah Krishma. The reason I'm bringing it also is because the Alter Rebbe doesn't talk about the same question, who's mechuyev in Krishma, comes up by tefillah, by tzitzis, who's mechuyev in all those things. And it's funny that the Eved sometimes is discussed. The Chatzi Eved, Chatzi Mechayim is never, almost never. But here Rabbi Akiva Eiger makes a point. If you have to be able to say Hashem Echad, if somebody else has a chokehold on you, you can't say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. What does that have to do to us? It has to do to us because there is another mitzvah. The mitzvah of Re'iyah. The mitzvah of Re'iyah, Shalish Pamim Bashana Yeroah Kol Zechorcha. 3 times a year, every male has to go up to Beis Hamikdash. What do you have to do? You have to go Pnei Ha'adon Hazeh. You have to go, not identify, show yourself to your master. So over there, the Gemara Chagiga has a question: Who is obligated to do this mitzvah? And he says a bunch of people are exempt. And then it speaks about avodim. So how can Eved go? How could an Eved go? If an Eved can't go to the Adon Hashem, can't come to the Master of Hashem, he has another guy bullying him around, telling him what to do. So an Eved is Pater. A Chatzi Eved is also should be Pater because he can't come and say, "Hey, Eibishter, you're mine." Well, I have somebody else bossing me around. However, the Gemara says over there like this. But before we get to the Gemara, here I want to quote to you a Tikkunei Zohar. The Tikkunei Zohar in Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin says, "Man de'iu chetzi eved the Yetzer Hara, v'chatzi eved the Yetzer Tov." You hear? Chatzi eved yechatzi b'chayim. Until now, I said it was talking about two partners own a slave. How about me? You? We have two bosses in us. We have a Yetzer Tov and we have a Yetzer Hara. If you don't take control, this is not me talking. The Tikkunei Zohar is saying it. If you don't take control of the Yetzer Hara, if you are Chatzi Eved the Yetzer Hara, v'Chatzi Eved the Yetzer Tov, you're Pater from Re'iyah. You're Pater from the mitzvah of Re'iyah because you're Meshubed. And he says these words: Bizmana de nafka nafshim bigufa, lesrei l'shul l'stakla b'shchinta. The time when the nefesh is controlled of the guf, you have no right to go say to the Eibishter, "Hi, I love you, I'm here." When do you love you? You know the famous story of Rabbi Aryeh Kalin. It says in the Machzor, the story of Rabbi Aryeh Kalin, Hamelech. The Gemara, he said he fainted. When he said Hamelech, he fainted because he remembered himself. The Gemara, the story of the Gemara, when a certain Tana came, Rabbi Yochanan came out to visit the king after they were holding a siege, and he says, "Oh, my dear king," he says, "Oh, really? If I was your king, what took you so long to come?" In other words, you can't come say Pnei Ha'adon Hazeh when you don't act that way. When you don't act that way. So he says, a person who is an Eved, Chatzi B'Mchayrin, not physically, even Chatzi Eved, Chatzi B'Mchayrin, the Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov, it's Pater from Re'iyah. So what's the clutch question? Re'iyah we don't do today anyways. But Kriyashma, it's also Shema. If it's had mitzvahs say Shazman Grama, I have what to deal with. But Rabbi Kiva Eger opened that can of worms by saying that the Yerushalmi says that a Chatzi Eved, Chatzi B'Mchayrin shouldn't be able to say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Shema. So if I'm tangled with my Yetzer Hara, I can't say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I got to be a super Chassidish guy to be able to say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We all have a Yetzer Hara. How are we kind the mitzvah? So the Gemara Chagiga says that really avodim should be pater for this reason, to go from Re'iyah. But the Gemara comes along and says a svara white, nevertheless avodim are mechuyev. He says why? Because the halacha states that an eved koifen as rabbi l'shachrei. They put stress, they put force on the master because it's not proper and it has a lot of halachic problems when you have a slave, and you have a lot of benefits if the slave becomes full Jewish. He's mechuyev and more mitzvahs. So we put pressure on the master to free him, and because we put force on the master to free him, we consider him a freed person. The man right now is still an eved, but because eventually, because of the halacha of kaifenes rabbi l'shachrei, he's going to be free. Says Rashi, we consider him a free person now, and an eved is mechuyev re'iyah. Take that shtickle Rashi. You know, I see Paul is laughing and say, the Eibishter promised us, he's taking us out of all this. Vesruach hatuma avim min haaretz. Right now, we have a bad Yetzer Hara. Your Yetzer Hara is very strong, telling you to be wild and all that. We have a strong Yetzer Hara. And today, at the very most, we might be a Chatzi Eved, Chatzi B'Mchayrin. And if we follow this thought, a Chatzi Eved, Chatzi B'Mchayrin is Takapatim from Krishma. I can't say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. But because eventually it's going to be Es Ruach Hatuma Avim min haaretz, and then we will be completely devoted to Hashem. So therefore, that gives us the possibility to already now say Kriya Shema. You like that one?
That was.
That you like it?
Yeah.
Now, just to finish off, I still have a couple minutes here. The Rebbe, you missed the punchline. The punchline. You want to hear the punchline? You heard the Tikkun Zohar?
Yeah.
So what's the shiloh based on the Tikkun Zohar? How could I say Krishma? You must not a hargi b'tainis. You're like David Melech. But a guy like most of us, he doesn't have a Yetzer Hara, but most of us have a Yetzer Hara. Even if we have a Yetzer Hara minor times, but it's Chatzi Avad, Chatzi B'chayrin. How can we say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad? So the Gemara says that Chatzi Avad, Chatzi B'chayrin. The Gemara says that even an Eved is Mechuyev B'riyah. I is an Eved because the din is Koifim Rabbi L'Shacharoi. So even though he's still never, because he's going to be a Meshucher, we consider him as a Meshucher now. So Mini Me says there's the same thing for Kriya Shema. Since the Eibush promises Vesruach Hatuma Avim and Aretz, so eventually we're going to be completely Umala Aretz Deres Hashem Kamayim Le'Yamachas. It's only going to be talking about Hashem, connected to Hashem. All this nonsense that he's doing there, running around there, is not going to be available, and we're not going to want to do it. So therefore, we treat the Eibush treats us now Mashiachdik. The Eibush treats us now. So therefore, we are able to say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. I just want to conclude. You're looking at the time. 16 minutes. No, 16 minutes. Oh, I
love it.
I'm stopping because I'm making $18. What is it? $5? I'm stopping right now.
That's all.
Hey, you lost the $5 bet.
What?
You lost the
No,
$5.
no.